Kapoor and Sons is not only one of my favorite movies of 2016 but of all time. It is a masterclass in cinematography, character dynamics, juggling multiple themes,
माँ इस घर में कोई भी दूध का धुला नहीं, ये सब झूठ बोलते हैं।
माँ ये कहानी किताब के बारे में नहीं है। माँ ये आपके और मेरे बारे में है। It's what you made me feel all these years that I'm just not good enough.
score, and realistic dialogue.
भाई से
भाई से
भाई से नहीं भाई से भाई से क्यों लड़ूंगा यार?
But from the opening shot, the one thing that I think it does better than any other movie is... Oh wait, shit, is he dead? One of the things movies and other form of media have to do is make the audience emotionally invested in the characters. That is one thing I think Kevin Feige understands better than anyone else. He knows they just can't exist to move from one plot point to the other. But unlike Kevin Feige, many other filmmakers don't have the luxury of multiple serialized movies to develop a character. They need to hit the ground running in what is usually a single 2.5-hour movie. It isn't enough to just have characters exist and only become relevant in the last 30 minutes and have the audience end up not even remembering their names as soon as they walk out of the theater. We need to be emotionally invested in them from the very first moment they appear on the screen.
क्या करिए चाहे उधर करो अभी सब अकाउंट पेपर्स पे गिर जाएगी.
This is something I think Shakun Batra, the director of Kapoor and Sons, and Aisha Divitretino understand. They don't just make compelling characters, they throw us in the deep end of the pool with them. When getting introduced to a character on screen, the audience needs to be conveyed who the character is and what the character is about. These are two very different things. The who deals with what their age, gender, appearance is like.
You're hot.
The what deals with their goals and desires.
आखिरी बार लिख रहा हूँ. हो सके तो कहानी याद रखना.
Now, goals and desires can be a very complicated way to look at characters. Some characters are written in a way that they don't have any overarching desires.
Next Saturday night, we're sending you back to the future.
Desires relevant to the theme of the movie.
Show that you, George McFly, are a fighter. You're somebody who's going to stand up for yourself.
But we do end up being emotionally invested in them because of their goals.
Sending 1.21 gigawatts into the flux capacitor and sending you back to 1985.
While some just have desires with no goal in sight.
I just dislocated my finger.
The way I like to look at the reason we identify and care for a character is the point where we get to know what their biggest problem is.
How you feeling this morning, huh? Full of life?
With most characters, their who is usually conveyed a long time before the biggest problem is even mentioned.
Hey, crime don't pay. You know that, Gloria. You know that.
But given the time constraints of a movie, the biggest problem needs to be made clear as soon as possible after the physical introduction. The reason Kapoor and Son is so masterful is that out of all the 6 main characters, every time we are introduced to one of them, not only do we know about their physical and personal traits, but we get to know or get an indication of what their biggest problem is.
Your deadline is in 2 months.
Listen, I'm just reworking the ending. I'm fixing the plot points.
This is what I call the hook point. The point it goes from them just being an actor on the screen to us caring about the character. We want them to win. And for every single character in this movie, we reach that point in under 30 seconds of screen time.
Working late tonight?
Hey, yeah, just sending a few emails.
The reason it works so well is because the characters are introduced in context to their purpose in life, not in context to another character. We don't have Alia Bhatt's character make an entry until 22 minutes into the movie, who, while we might think initially is part of a throwaway romantic subplot in the movie, is shown to be also struggling with her biggest problem, her purpose to find her own family, which is introduced to us at a breakneck speed by the director in what has to be the greatest introduction in cinematic history.
We love you, Kishore. Yeah, we love you.
Did you just see what happened? That was one line. First, we're conveyed a lot from the setting itself. It's a house party consisting mainly of young people. Something that covertly means the parents are not around. Her very first words we hear are essentially, for the purpose of the plot, gibberish, as conveyed by the camera work and light work, where we don't get to see her face until we hear the first line that actually matters. Her very first words are calling out for someone who is obviously the housekeeper, and housekeepers are mostly employed by the adults. What should be her parents?
13 साल की उम्र में मेरे पेरेंट्स गुजर गए.
Which plants the very first seed that her parents are not around. फिर से Fuse उड़ गया reinforces the idea that this is indeed her house. She's simply just not a guest here. That's 5 words, 20 seconds, and already we know that she's loud, sociable, that her parents are not around, and she's got an entire huge house to herself. All that in under 20 seconds. Comparison, what's considered the most iconic character introduction of all time, of Marion in Raiders of the Lost Ark, took an entire 2 minutes and 12 seconds. These 20 seconds told us everything we need to know about her. This is how character introductions need to work. I mean, they just gave Steven Spielberg a run for his money.